Welcome to Women, Men, and Relationships. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's show. We're going to talk about the correlation between personal growth and business growth. I've been in the personal training field and the health and wellness space for a long time, and too many people disconnect the idea of self-care with anything else in their life. And it's so connected that I had to do a show about it with the Mr. Doug Sandler. So today's show is a replay of me on the Nice Guys on Business. Doug and I were talking about doing another show and having me back on the show now that our relationship has shifted. And I had the perfect idea because obviously I'm done talking about just fitness for fitness sake. As a business show, I wanted to make sure people understood. And if you're someone who doesn't have a business, don't check out. Because you have a job, and that job requires you to have personal skills. And so today's show is linking personal growth and business growth, because one absolutely influences the other, and I don't think many people make that leap. So enjoy today's bonus episode.
Hey, this episode is not going to suck like the last one. No, here's what you can look forward to with the Nice Guys on Business.
The only reason we do anything we do and anything we want is because we think we will feel better.
I feel the need for the Nice Guys on Business podcast. Need an education on how to grow your business? The Nice Guys are here to help. Learn about great customer service, networking, and how just being nice can help you prosper. Now, here are your hosts, Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner.
I guess we need to keep this professional, and also let's give this a try. As many in our Nice Guys community know, there has been a shakeup, maybe a changing of the guard, if you will. And if that metaphor isn't your thing, there's a new sheriff in town. Well, I've clicked my Ruby Reds 3 times, and there is no place like home in LA. So while she is not making sure I'm leading a healthy life, this female influencer in my life, JJ Flazanes, has already, she's had a pretty good life before even meeting me. Named best personal trainer in LA, authored 2 bestsellers, and featured on a boatload of magazine and TV shows. I mean, seriously, a slacker she is not. While she is not training, JJ designs custom coaching, helping her clients emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Woo is definitely not fuck, and it is here today to share a little bit, and maybe some non-woo stuff. I think we're going to talk a little bit of everything, and I'm finding out every day that this is the place for me to be. Welcome, JJ Flazanes, to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Well, thank you, Mr. Doug Sandler. I am happy to be here.
This is interesting. This is really interesting. I saw that I had you on the schedule, and I didn't know what I was going to talk to you about. I feel like we co-host a show together now, Nice Guy Community. You may have heard me mention this a few times, called Women, Men, and Relationships. I'm actually boycotting the show until we change the name to Men, Women, and Relationships, but that's okay. She started.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
So JJ, you got some shit going on in your life that's pretty interesting. So where do we even begin to start? Maybe start with your story. Just share a little bit about who you are, so our community can get caught up to speed, because they keep hearing this as today's title of today's episode. This was back in July when we aired when we recorded this, when this episode aired. Who is JJ was the episode that came out today. So JJ, who is JJ exactly?
Well, if you actually listen to that episode, you still don't know the answer to that question. I wasn't on that show. You barely spent 5 minutes in mentioning me. I listened to the whole episode thinking I have no more answer than anyone else does after listening to that show. But that is because it's a Tuesday, Thursday show. And because today we're on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday show, I am a personal trainer turned spiritual mind, body, soul integrative specialist.
Whoa. Is there some woo in there, or is that just?
There's woo. There's woo. There has to be woo.
So give me the connection between woo and California? Because it seems like back east, back in the DC area, I had never even heard of the word woo until I think it was Ian Gray got up at the New Media Summit in either September or April. I can't remember which one.
April.
Okay, cool. And he goes, hey, just so everybody knows, woo is fuck.
No, he said woo as fuck, not woo is fuck.
Okay.
Woo is
Okay.
Because he was talking about his manifestation story financially, and the whole time he was pitching, I didn't I liked him. I liked his story, but I don't deal with a lot of money stuff on my show. And so at the end, when he said, and I'm woo as fuck, I'm like, okay, now you got me. You can be on my show.
Okay, so maybe we should give the definition of what woo is and then come back and explain exactly what you do and how you do it and exactly why you think this is something that is embraced so much in not only in LA, but I'm just joking when I say LA, but it's just where I have been enlightened in LA about this woo thing. But why is this such an essential ingredient as it's a building not only your life, but your business too?
I think more and more as we progress in this culture, things that are like the dichotomy between those who sort of have very tight, controlled, small minded, anxiety driven, control driven viewpoints, limited views, the more we notice based on what's going on in the government, what's going on in the conversations, like there's been now this split in sort of what I'm going to call unconscious sort of little behavior, really focusing on kind of stupid stuff. And I don't mean to be judgmental, but the things that we really like get caught up in, that if you take a step back, it's like, who cares? What? How does it really affect your day to day, every single day? Like if you didn't turn on the television, would you even be affected? And that's how I always sort of treat like what's going on. Did it affect my day to day life? If I didn't turn the TV on, if it didn't, then I don't need to know it right now.
Okay. So wait, before you even go beyond that though, isn't it true that the little things in tandem, in collection, make up the bigger things though? I mean, yes, don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. But when does that small stuff actually become important, big stuff for you to actually pay attention to?
Well, you'll figure that out if along your path, when whatever shows up for you is now crumbling and falling apart. There's a difference in it. Here's where we're going to get into a little bit of woo. And this is a physics concept. This is not, everyone understands how a radio works. If you want to listen to your favorite radio station, you have to be exactly on the frequency where your radio station plays.
Okay.
If you want to hear your radio station and you click 2 or 3 points, before or after it, you're not going to hear what you want to hear. This is a common understanding. Yet we don't get that frequency, that same frequency and vibration is how we live our lives. And what you focus on is what you get. What you're in alignment with is what you pay attention to, is what you see. So for instance, like a car, I always talk about, to tell people who are disbelievers about frequency. If you've ever bought a car, which everyone has, but if you've ever looked for a car and all of a sudden you're in the process of even buying it, or maybe you've just bought it. Now all of a sudden, do you recognize that you see that car everywhere? Whereas before, maybe you saw it a little bit, but now all of a sudden it just seems to be everywhere. You just notice it. That is not that's not a fluke. That's because you are tuned into that car.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden now it shows up every time it's near you, you pay attention because you are tuned to it. And so when it comes to our lives and the woo part of spirituality, is that people recognize with the onset of depression and suicide, especially in high profile situations, like people are becoming aware that, we never discuss or talk about or know anything about emotions or all of these things that actually are the drivers of our life. The only reason why we do anything we do, I'm going to slow that down and say it again.
Okay.
The only reason we do anything we do and anything we want is because we think we will feel better in the having of it.
Okay. So that obviously can transcend every aspect of your business. It can be of your life. It could be your personal life. It could be your professional life. So I'm beginning to see a little bit more clearly the tie into how what you do actually can affect all aspects of people's lives.
Absolutely. But here's the thing. It's really funny. A common friend of ours, when I was promoting my first event, Releasing What Weighs You Down, I said to him, this is an event that maybe your audience might be interested in. It's not exactly business, but he looked at it and said, no, I don't think it fits. And I thought, okay, you don't get the connection. The connection is that if you're having an issue in your business of growth, or you're attracting bad clients or situations and you don't know what's going on, there is always an element of personal growth needed to grow your business.
Mm-hmm.
When you're an entrepreneur, your business is your mirror. it's your reflection back at your limiting beliefs, your comfortability, your comfort level of receiving and asking for money, your self-worth, your ability to translate information, your confidence level, your worthiness. Like, your business is your mirror to your self-growth needs. And so I think that sometimes often business owners think that they're completely separate, that my emotional life, my health and self-care has nothing to do with my business. And I want to say that's bullshit. It absolutely has everything to do with that, because if you're unwilling to grow as a person, you're probably going to find that your business is not going to grow very well either.
So tell me how you started to feel like, okay, well, this isn't just something that I use as my personal North Star, but this is something that I think that other people should use as well. Are you taking the teachings of others and kind of interpreting them and running them through your filter and pushing them out to the world in the form of coaching? Or is it something that you've created? Because I know you have certain terms that you use over and over and over again. And I'm not saying that in a nauseating way. I'm saying it in a, wow, I actually can see how this works. Law of attraction, sacred contracts, even things like, Gary, I can't remember who wrote the book.
Gary Chapman wrote Five Love Languages.
Yeah, thank you for completing that sentence for me. So even just how you are communicating with people, what love languages are you using to communicate and which are they receiving? So tell me how you put this system together that you've created.
I look at any information and see how it applies to all aspects of our lives, because I think that a system doesn't live in a vacuum. And if you think about a process in one application, why can't you use that application in other areas of your life? So for instance, when we were having that conversation about me coming back on this show to talk about the 5 love languages, and you're like, well, that's not, or no, you had said you talked about it, but Strickland stopped you because it wasn't business. And I said, bullshit, why isn't it business? Why wouldn't every business that, especially service providers, anyone who works with a customer, understand what that customer's love language is? Because that's going to give you information about how to communicate with them, especially when you need to do customer service and when things go wrong. So when things go wrong and you have a customer whose love language is words of affirmation, they're going to need words to feel better about your relationship.
It's funny you say this, because as I'm thinking back to a client that we actually had an issue with because of just mistake that we made, and there was a service issue. And I remember, as a result of sending them, or as a result of having this issue, I think I sent them like a Starbucks gift card or something. And it's not like it wasn't appreciated. I could hear it, but it was like, it wasn't appreciated in the way that I thought it was going to be received. Because I thought, hey, listen, a little gift would be good to say, we're sorry. What this client actually wanted were words, were the words, I'm sorry, the words of showing up. And the words were so much more important than the gift itself. It just really proved itself to me in a very, very quick, in a quick measure, just doing with one short apology.
Well, that's what showed up for me when I first started my business. And I had brought on, at the time, one of my best friends who became a business partner. And I didn't realize, God, it was such a learning for me. I didn't realize. And then and one of my friends prior to him, who was also working for me here, I felt this immense amount of guilt because the business was having a hard time. It's when I was employing like a lot of trainers all over Southern California. And I had lost a bunch of clients and things had happened. And then I was back on, I couldn't pay people exactly in full. And anyway, it was just a mess, right? It was a mess. And I kept my head down because the amount of guilt that I had was so high. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I can't say I'm sorry yet, because I feel like if I say I'm sorry, they're going to expect, okay, I'm sorry is not enough. Where's my check? So until I could pay them, I did nothing. And the feedback I got later was all I wanted was to be recognized. And I thought, holy crap, did I just miss the boat on that one? And I had no idea about love languages back then. So I think not only is it important for your customers, it's important for your employees, because your employees will be loyal and stay with you longer when they feel seen and heard. But they're going to feel seen and heard differently. And they're going to use things like love languages, things like astrology, things like birth order, things like different psychological and sociological profile markers, if you will, to better create relationships. And that's what you're about, creating relationships. But you make better relationships when you understand your audience.
So when you onboard a new client or new customer, how do you work through that? Do you give them a test? Is there an analysis? How does it work?
Well, Doug Sandler, let's talk about what happened when I onboarded you. Do you remember some of
If I had my bell, I would ring it.
Ding, ding, ding.
My bell is somewhere in storage right now. I don't.
Here,
Oh.
this is a glass. This is a glass. And I can't quite get it right. Hold on. Nope, that didn't work.
No, not working.
Because I'm
It's
holding
my
it.
bell. I need my bell back. It's somewhere. It's the pod people have my
If you want
bell.
to hold on 1 second, I can run and get the Tibetan bell in the other room. but-
No, that's okay. That's a bit extreme. That is
is.
that is woo as fuck.
Oh, it's so good though. It's so good. But do you remember when you were my client, what some of the questions I asked you?
No, go ahead. I'm
You
listening.
like, no, I don't remember anything.
Of course,
Uh,
of course not. Of course
Right.
not. Nice Guy community. You may remember going back to, I think it was December or January. I brought JJ on as my personal trainer because of the accolades that she had gotten in LA from being, what was the title? World's best,
Best-
the world's best trainer. or
Best
something.
personal trainer in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good thing. So I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to have somebody kick my ass, I'm going to have it, and this is obviously before, and we'll get into a little bit of the relationship where we've gone, but we'll also promote our show that we're starting to co-host together now. But yeah, when I brought you on, or when you brought me on as a client, I do remember filling out a Q&A, and some of the questions that you were asking, I thought were unusual because they were related, as far as I could tell, to like my astrology. I'm like, what the hell does this have to do with anything?
Well, I think that's not in the questionnaire, although that's a good idea. I should do that. Thanks for that. No, but I did ask you. I think I probably asked you, and you were pretty straight-laced and pretty focused on what you wanted. And, it took me several sessions of your back pain to kind of like ease into the idea that some of this is probably emotional. I'm going to still come at it from a physical side. I'm going to wait till you're kind of open to it. I did not come at you full force with the astrological woo-woo stuff, but I did do your chart pretty early on.
Yeah.
Me, I have more information about what that means for how I communicate with you and how you're going to hear. And so, getting back to sort of connecting those dots in terms of either onboarding or that personal growth and business growth come hand in hand. And even if you're an employee and you're wanting to have a better experience at your job and to even grow within that organization and maybe move up, there's still a bit of personal growth that you have to do to handle that. It's not just your technical skills, it's also your life skills and how you handle communication and managing people and your own emotional state. And so, in terms of how do I onboard people? Well, I ask everybody for their birth date, birth time, and place. So I do their chart. Whether I tell them or not is a different story.
Yeah.
And I do now offer astrological health analysis as well as astrological relationship analysis.
Well, what's so amazing about that is how on point those are. And from a guy that's coming from a perspective of totally East Coast, and I'm not saying East Coast versus West Coast, but I guess I just put that in the mentality side of things. It's just like, holy shit, so much of the stuff that you share is so directly on target. It's unbelievable. And I just want you to maybe spend a moment just explaining why those things actually work.
Why astrological things work?
Yeah. Why
we don't explain how astrological. Okay, that's a whole.
I know.
We already covered that. I did Strick's whole chart on one of these.
Just give the 30-second, the 35,000 foot approach to why astrology actually can make shit make sense.
Great. Okay, so we are governed by the energy of the world. We are energy, and there are things that affect energy. So if you think about the ocean and the waves and the different levels of the tides throughout the day, it's in direct relationship to the position of the moon in relationship to the earth. And the closer the moon is to the earth, the bigger the waves are. It's an energetic pull. Well, we also are made up of 70% water, and we have an energetic pull. And when we were born, there was a mix or an ingredient list, if you will, of astrological energetic placement that influenced things like your personality, things like how you hear and how you interpret emotion and how you look at the world and things that are important to you and the things that you gravitate towards, the way you process all kinds of information, the way that you act. It's not just, anyone that has a child, and I don't have a child, but I don't need to have a child to understand that a child comes into this world with a personality you did not give them.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? That's not genetic. That is not genetic. That is astrological.
Well, you look at you and your brother, you look at me and my brother, we are at completely opposite ends of the spectrum. And, our environment and our maybe it is the energy that we bring onto this earth is displayed in our personalities.
Absolutely. And, I'm not a professional astrologer. You wouldn't come to me for a reading of all the houses, but I've been working with people for years where I don't know them. They give me their chart. I read a bunch of stuff from the hip, from all the stuff I've been studying. And they're like, oh my God, you nailed me. I'm like, okay. And I don't have any attachment to it because I'm just giving you my life experience. That is one of the ways I've looked at life and just sort of seen patterns. And not that this show is not about astrology, but it is about the idea that something that you might consider personal growth or self-development or self-help or again woo woo is a tool that I believe business, especially business owners, but all business related people would benefit from. Like I have got an event coming up and that's what made me think about that. It's called
Yeah.
The Next Big Step. And the next big step, and my first event, Releasing What Weighs You Down, which is now going to be a regular January event, and hopefully after this next big step event, that'll be a regular September or October event. This is about bringing a community of people together and doing sort of the deep dive of therapy that you're never going to get once a week for 50 minutes because you you can barely scratch the surface once a week for 50 minutes. This is a weekend experience with a fully integrated approach from the physical, the mental, emotional, and the spiritual that not only gives you concepts of understanding from a headspace, but also you go through practices to embody and live and integrate it into your life. And so a lot of times I think business owners go, I don't value my own personal growth because I'm going to invest my money in my business. Well, okay. And then when you keep coming up against the same issue in your business over and over and over again, the same frustrations over and over and over again, my suggestion is going to be maybe it's time to really look at your business as a reflection of your life. Where do you need to grow for your business to grow or for your business to change? So taking that retreat, taking that time to do that, it's almost like when you go to a training, right? So you go to a training to learn a skill set or to network in your business, and you find that very valuable for those relationships. This is about improving and getting better at doing you. And the better you are, the better you can be in any situation.
Well, we'll make sure that we put a link in the show notes, Nice Guy Community. It's going to be jjflizanes.com / next big step. It is going to be a great event. I'm going to be there for a portion of the event before I have to fly back to DC to do an event of my very own, a slightly different live event. It's called a bar mitzvah in my particular case. But in your case, definitely the next big step is a spot where you should be hanging out and seeing other people that are probably very similar to you and trying to get to the next step in their life. So it's jjflizanes.com / next big step. Your message also shows up in several other places too. It shows up in the 2 books that you've written. It shows up, or have you written 2 or have you written more? I can't.
I've written 3.
I was going to say
I've written 3.
All
And
right,
the last one is called The Invisible Fitness Formula: 5 Secrets to Release Weight and End Body Shame. Can I talk about that for a second?
absolutely, yeah.
So here's another aspect of where this is 20 years of being a personal trainer. And after 20 years of looking back at all the clients, so I've done my own case studies. I've got files and files literally in the garage, files and files of people who I could tell you who succeeds and who doesn't and why. And I got to boil it down into 5 different steps and 5 different secrets to release weight. So you could say lose weight, but I prefer to say release weight because you don't want to find it again. You want to release it.
That's right. True.
Right. And then end body shame, which is where most of this comes from. And the secrets go in a very specific order. And the reason, and it does incorporate kind of all the stuff that I'm talking about, just we start to dive into the emotional, well, we definitely go into the emotional piece, but in terms of the spiritual piece or the community piece at the end. But there's some very hard and fast, concrete, physical things that need to happen. I got really tired of listening to people want weight loss and not be able to take the journey of why. I've had clients who are in Florida and they had literally been on every program for the last 20 years, and they lose weight and they gain it back, and they lose weight and they gain it back, and they lose weight and they gain it back. And I thought, and they came on one of my programs and they thought they were going to repeat the same behavior. They were going to log their food. They were going to log their exercise. They were going to get on the scale. They were going to report how much weight they lost. They did none of that on my program. And they thought, holy crap, this is really different.
Mm-hmm.
And they realized at the end of the 12 weeks, at the beginning, when I said, about the emotional issues that people have with weight loss and with food. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? I don't have any emotional issues. And then by the end of the 12 weeks, they're like, holy crap, I have a ton of emotional issues.
Yeah, yeah.
And the awareness at least leads you to now a path of actually uncovering what's been sabotaging you. Why would you want to continue on the rat race? It's not a rat race. It's the hamster wheel over and over again, right? Over and over again of like the same thing, and then ending up back to where you started. It's frustrating. And so this book, and by the way, if anybody in the Nice Guy community wants a free copy, you can go to jjflazanes.com/gift and download your free copy of The Invisible Fitness Formula, 5 Secrets to Release Weight and End Body Shame. But it's my life's work. It's the beginning of taking this idea of how your physical body really is a reflection of how you feel about it and what you do to maintain it, and your lack of respect and confidence in yourself. It's really all of it wrapped into 5 secrets that release weight and end body shame.
So talk about also, and great, we'll make sure we put a link. So it's jjflazanes.com/gift.
Yes.
Okay, we will make sure that we put a link in the show notes for that as well. And you also are the host of 28, 29. How many podcasts do you have?
You're hilarious. That definitely is now the most that anyone has said. I think it just keeps growing. Like Allison, I think a couple weeks ago said 10 or 12 when we recorded with Michael. And so now you've beaten her. I mean, I didn't even tell you that she said 12, but you've now said 28. Mm-hmm. So no, I've lost count of how many shows I have, but 4 right now are active in terms of being produced and published every week. And you are now the new co-host on Women, Men, and Relationships.
Yeah, talk about that show for a second, because I think there's probably a number of people, especially that they've been listening to me whine, bitch, and moan for probably the last 3 or 4 months now, as of the airing of this, about some broken relationships and stuff, and new relationships, and found love with you, and every other element of my personal ride. Share a little bit about what that show is about.
Well, Men, Women, and Relationships was the rebrand. When I first started Fit to Love, it was 6 days a week. And each day of the week was a different theme: exercise, cooking, alternative medicine, spirituality and law of attraction, relationships, and psychology. And I took all 6 of those different days of the week under that brand, and I rebranded them, and each got their own show. So what was Sexy Saturdays on the Fit to Love podcast became Women, Men, and Relationships. And that show really is the outlet to have those conversations of how to have relationships, how all of this, from your self-care to your self-talk to your confidence to your lack of shame or too much shame about your body, stops you from dating, to how you're dressing, to how you're using law of attraction or aware of it, to all of those pieces, into having the kind of relationship that you want. Because my first book, Fit to Love, really was about my journey into connecting self-care with self-love, and therefore attracting a partner. And, one of the things that I talked about on my Sacred Contract show is why it took me so long to get to the place I was ready to surrender to what my husband had wanted, which was to leave our marriage. And I fought that for a very long time, but I had to get to the place where I really felt like I tried everything that I could, that there was nothing else that I could do. And then there was also a lot of shame around the fact that I wrote a book called Fit to Love. I talked about manifesting my husband. It's like, am I a phony? Did this not work? Am I going to look, is people going to say, well, what happened? How come you couldn't fix it? You don't know everything that you talk about. You haven't used everything you talk about. And really I had. And so I think I prolonged it based on, again, that idea in my business that all of a sudden, am I going to become a fraud? And what happened was, after I released and surrendered, and I had done all the work I possibly could have done at that point, and was at peace with my decision, and not that I thought we were actually going to be apart forever. I just surrendered to, like, let's shift it up, let's change it around, move out, go date people, let's give it 6 months to a year and see what happens. And that's when you came along about 2 hours later. And then I was like, oh, that's what I wanted. And that's what I've been asking for. And here we are now. So not only did it take me about 3 weeks to manifest my husband the first time, it took me 2 hours to get you. So once I actually released what I was trying to control, you showed up 2 hours later, and boom, here we are.
So, according to my calculations as of the airing of this, since it's 6 months that your husband will be coming back, I have exactly 3 more months in order to do everything I need to do. And this is good. This is just so I have a timeline. It's very important, to give me goals and give some structure to relationships. So, from a relationship perspective, though, so you are someone that obviously I would consider a relationships expert. You're somebody that definitely is a communications expert. You're somebody that that has the tools or understands the tools. Whether you use them or not is completely up to you. But whether you have access and you know how to use the tools, why is it that you'd want to be involved with somebody that'd be such a relationship mess?
Who are we talking about right now? You? We're talking about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with me. I'll go with me. Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that.
Well,
I mean, we're on our show, on my show, so I guess people would be saying there's probably been several people screaming at the speaker at this point as they're listening to this, and they're saying, "Oh my gosh, this is the ultimate in rebound relationships going on. How would you even want to get involved with him? And to me, how would you want to get involved with her? You guys both have broken relationships that you entered into this one pretty quickly after both of those ended. Isn't that like disaster waiting to happen?"
yeah, that is absolutely one perspective. And then there's the other perspective of you were unconsciously asking for more than you had. I was consciously focused on getting more than I had. I had plenty of time to do my healing work through the decline of my marriage for over a year and a half. I was being punished for basically about a year and a half, but it had been on the decline. And I had been learning how to cope with someone disconnecting from me for many years. So in terms to me, I was ready. Not that I still don't have things and wounds to heal and sort of grief to release. And every day and every week it's better and better. But when it comes to our situation, it's perfect timing. Again, I knew exactly when you reached out to me. I mean, the likelihood that what happened was going to happen was very slim.
Yeah.
There's no other way to explain. This isn't just, we live 3,000 miles away from each other. You are not a good rebound situation. This was very inconvenient in a way for you to move, yet it was perfectly timed with the fact that your lease was coming up, with the fact that you were going to be off for the summer for most of the events that you do locally. And all of a sudden, again, divine timing, everything lined up perfectly. So whether this is a rebound or not really doesn't matter, because some rebounds are really just, we had to get the wrong people out of the way for the right thing to happen.
Yeah.
So it just depends on were you in the right place for a long period of time, or was it the right place at the right time? And then when it wasn't, that's how I described what happened to me. My husband was the right person for me to learn everything I needed to learn in order for me to get to be where I am. And then once I could surrender, I got what I was asking for. So let me loop this back into two things. One thing you started by asking me was about the Women, Men, and Relationship podcast. And, one of the things that you and I are going to do a lot of talking about is all of this, what's going to be really cool and fun, even for just us to record it and to get it recorded for years to come, to go back and listen to about the healing process, the uncovering, the idea of rebound versus right timing and right person, and all that stuff we're going to be discussing every second episode of the week on Women, Men, and Relationships. And when I released the situation I was in, my business started to grow in different ways. And I know your business has grown in different ways. And so there's a direct correlation with growing yourself and growing your business. And would you not agree that things shifted for you?
Totally. It was almost like, and I didn't even think there was anything holding me back. I thought that I was involved in a relationship that was supportive and there was a lot of conversation about growing professionally through in a part of having that relationship in my previous marriage. And a lot of that was, I don't understand why it wasn't happening. There was some block, but it was almost like that block was lifted within weeks of starting a relationship with you. All of these things started to transpire that were positive things, not only personally, which I felt was happening, but professionally as well. And it is fairly incredible to just watch and witness the process. I don't want to leave or conclude without sharing again the name of the podcast is Women, Men, and Relationships, and the episode that I aired for the first time is episode number 55. Which aired back in July. So make sure you check it out through however you're getting your podcast. I think it's now on Overcast as well. So I'm hoping that we do well in the ratings and the rankings on Overcast too. But I know you can get there on iTunes too. So Women, Men, and Relationships.
Yeah, definitely check it out. And, I also, to piggyback on what you talked about in terms of business growth, I had been told, actually, even my husband said it to me. He said, I'm holding you back. And I thought, yeah, you probably think you're holding me back, but I didn't feel held back. And then, of course, Lisa Thomas, who's also an energy healer that I work with that you've now experienced, she said to me, he's holding you back. And I thought, I never perceived myself as someone who was being held back. And then all of a sudden, after that went away and then you showed up, I went, oh my God, I was being held back. But I was being held back from myself because I was only allowing myself to grow in business and in life to the extent at which I thought my spouse would accept it. And I didn't get that until I had a different partner who wanted and could see a bigger path for me and was excited about as big as I can get versus someone who felt less and less connected to me the bigger I got or the more I expanded and less in common with me and maybe threatened or jealous or I don't know what, or just uncomfortable or maybe uncomfortable about what his family would think. But now it's very clear on the other side that I actually was holding myself back. I just didn't realize it. And now, again, business and life is at a whole new level. And so this is where, to drive the point home again about the topic today's show, is that you can't separate them. Your personal work on yourself affects every aspect of your life. It affects your relationships. It affects your business. It reflects your families. And I think your ability to be abundant too.
Just head over to jjplazanes.com/next big step if you want to get information about the live event, or any information about JJ can be found on her website as well. We'll make sure we put a link in the show notes for all that. JJ, I'm excited to be here in LA. I love it. A lot of Teslas around here. It might be just a matter of time before Strick is pulling his Tesla up to to your driveway. I'm not sure I'm quite ready for one yet, though.
But have you noticed how many times you see them? Because you both have been so tuned to Tesla for so long that everywhere we go, doesn't matter what state we're in, all you guys see Tesla. Look at that, Tesla. So they're like everywhere. And they are everywhere here, by the way. But I just think it's funny that you guys notice them because you're tuned to them. So.
Pool party at JJ's. Just remember that. Pool party at JJ's, very close to the LAX airport. You guys know that I've done probably some of the podcast recording right in the backyard, very close to the pool. So JJ, thanks for having me here. I'm enjoying being I feel like I'm letting my hair grow a little bit longer. I feel like I'm getting in touch with a little bit more of my woo side. I feel almost like a Californian.
Yeah, your mom's going to be very happy about the whole hair thing.
That's true. My mom's always grow your hair longer. Oh my gosh. JJ, thanks for being on the show today.
Doug, thanks for having me.
Nice guy community. Never underestimate the power of nice or the power of woo as fuck. Special thanks to JJ Plazanes for being on the show. All of her information and contact info will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.